Bienvenidos chicos, welcome to Español. This is a GCSE and A-level Spanish channel where we'll go through paper walkthroughs. Today we're going through the GCSE Edexcel 2018 Spanish Reading Higher Tier paper. This is a full marks response which would get 50 out of 50, Spanish made simple, and should you do this or come across questions like this in your exam, hopefully you will get a grade 9. Let's not mess about, let's go really fast here. Let's start with Pregunta 1. Vale, so when we see a question on a Spanish paper, my three things to do are highlight the focuses. So we've got looking for a town name, how old are students, and how do we know that Lita's drawing skills are improving since she won is keyword there, the competition. And then you go into the text first. Always read the questions first, and I'm not going to repeat this to save time, but read the question first before you even start reading the text that you get given, as honestly it will save you lots of time and you can skim read. Okay, so it's translated into English. We have El Ayuntamiento de Toledo está organizado actividades extracurriculares, circuitos y concursos para mejorar la vida de los alumnos en los institutos. As we can see here, so it's basically saying to improve the lives of students in schools. That's your answer for part A. So putting that there. That's our answer for part A. So how old are the students involved? So this is being a bit tricky here. So it's not asking you much. It's just asking you how old are the students that took part. So it says like children's of all ages participated. So that's your answer there. Of todas las edades, that's all ages. So we can do green to that one. That's our answer to part B. And then finally, how do we know that Lita's drawing skills are improving? Okay, that's the last question we have. So if we read the text here, so now she is taking an advanced course in art, which will help her develop an artistic career in the future. So develop a course, an advanced course in art is your answer there. And that should be your answer to that question. 3 out of 3, check the mark scheme. So improve the students' lives, yep. So all ages, correct. And she's doing an advanced drawing or art course, that's also correct. 3 out of 3 on Pregunta 1. Ahora, Pregunta 2. Vale, Pregunta 2 is El Guardián Invisible by Dolores Redondo. So, first of all, I think this text is quite difficult. So, the text is about a police inspector called Amelia Salazar. Okay, so what did the inspector do every time she received a call? Why did she do this? Why did Mr. Elizu call the police station at 11? And what did Ainhoa tell her brother on the phone? Okay, so the inspector normally receives a call very early to go to work, normally around 2. She always does the same thing. So she gets up, that's the verb to get up, levantar. She gets up carefully and quietly. And that's your answer to the first question. There. And then next thing in the sentence, I'm just going to change the colour. So in order to not disturb her husband. No despertar a su marido. And that's your answer to the second part. So, why did Mr. Elizu call the police station at 11? Okay. So, we find once, so once de la noche. So, he called the police station to report that his daughter has not returned home. His daughter has not returned back home. Okay, and that's your answer to that one. That's there. And finally, what did Ainhoa tell her brother on the phone? This is probably the nicest part. Well, the easiest part to get. So on the last line, is that she has missed. So the last. Oh, that's awful. She's missed her last bus to Ariscon. So the fact that she's missed the last bus to Ariscon. Can go there. And if we check the mark scheme, yep. She got up carefully, didn't want to disturb, daughter not come home, and she'd missed the last bus to Ariscon. You didn't need Ariscon there, but if you mentioned it, well done. Pregunta 3. Vale. Pregunta 3 is Lima, the capital of Peru. This is questions about the capital city of Peru. This question's a bit different from the rest of them, but we'll still go over the question focus. So, who mentions the traffic? Mention one thing that Rosalina looks for. Whenever you see one of the questions where it says mention one thing or mention two things, always draw an arrow because you know there's more than one answer and it just helps you know that you've got more than one answer. What do we learn about Lima's economy and who stayed longer than expected in Lima? And also, what surprised Dolores? So, I'm going to start off with questions with names in it. So, mention one thing that Rosalina does when she is on holiday. Okay, so Rosalina says we don't usually go to big cities because we're always in search of landscapes. So, de paisajes. So, we're always in search of landscapes will be your answer there. To there, that question. Then we've also got what surprised Dolores. So if we find Dolores, so if we go to a different colour. So what surprised Dolores? So Dolores says we had been there several years ago, but this time we were amazed at the amount of changes. So por el gran número de cambios is the amount of changes, so that's what surprised Dolores. Okay. Then you pick up stuff from other text. So at this point, if you haven't been able to find answers for other things, you just go through and start reading them. Okay, so we're looking for who mentions the traffic, what we learn about Lima's economy, who stayed longer than usual. They're the three questions we're looking for. So normally, because there's three people we've mentioned, we can expect three different answers. So, who mentions the traffic? So, and let's just start from the beginning. So Rosalina, she says, we don't usually go to big cities because we're always in search of landscapes and small towns. But Lima was impressive. We were supposed to spend a couple of days and ended up staying for a fortnight. So that answers that question D there. So there, we were supposed to stay a couple of days, but we spent a fortnight. So the answer is, who stayed longer? Well, that's Rosalina stayed longer. Okay, so Dolores. So what did Dolores said? We had been there several years ago, but this time we're amazed at the vast number of changes that have taken place. Aside from the severe traffic jams, so los graves embotamientos. So Dolores mentions the traffic. So he says that it's quite busy in Lima. And then finally, C. So we'll keep reading on to see if Dolores says anything else. So aside from the severe traffic jams and drivers in the city centre, Lima seems magnificent to us. That doesn't answer our question. So Daniel must have the answer. So more and more, you see department stores, expensive houses, and vehicles, a sign that Lima is a wealthy city. So Lima es una ciudad rica. So what do we learn about Lima's economy? That it's a rich city, and that should get us the mark. Let's have a look at the mark scheme. So who mentions the traffic? Dolores, correcto. So you could have had landscape. We said landscape, correct. Rich city. You could also have had expensive houses or growing economy. So he goes on to say, con una economica que cree. So growing economy. 3D. So who stayed longer than expected? Rosalina. And 3E. So the changes. So E, Dolores, there. Yeah, el gran número de cambios, the grand number of changes. So correct and correct. You get 5 out of 5. Vale, pregunta 4 is Los besos en el pan by Almudena Grandes. Okay, so with this question, it always goes in order in the text. So we can start at the top and be pretty guaranteed that it will all go in order. So Jaime and Consuelo have met before, are meeting for the first time, were at school together or worked in the same office. So they are at an interview for a new company, but they have already met they've met a lot of years before. Muchos años antes, they've met a lot of years before. So the answer is A, they have met before. So Consuelo, so if we go here, so keep reading. So Jaime remembers, but Consuelo doesn't. So the answer there is D. Consuelo doesn't recognize Jaime, sorry. Jaime, so number 3, so that'll be here somewhere. So is quite tall, dresses well, has brown hair, is very particular. So let's look for one of them. So he's not tall or short. and he has brown hair, el pelo castaño. So the answer is C. Enrique is blank, then Jaime. So that'll probably be here. So, yeah, Enrique, que aunque solo es 14 meses mayor. So, although Enrique is 14 months older, so we know that Enrique is mayor, so older than Jaime. The clothes wore as a child, so keep reading here. So, although he was 14 months older, he was taller and thinner, which didn't suit Jaime, because his shirts were always half open and his pants were too tight. So the answer is uncomfortable, or trousers, whatever you want to call them. So the clothes Jaime wore as a child were uncomfortable. If you check the mark scheme, which is, yep, so A, D, C, D, and B, you'd also get 5 out of 5 on Pregunta 4. Pregunta 5. Vale, Pregunta 5. El Camino de Santiago, the pilgrim route to Santiago. Okay, so with this question, if you ever get stuck on it, always put a random answer, because without a doubt, you're probably going to get a mark. What you do here is that, so like in all the other questions. So who saw the experience as a challenge, who preferred being alone, who felt calm, and who found love on the journey. So just read through these one by one at a time. Start with David, go down to the bottom, try and translate things, and if one of them matches up, write it in. If you find a gap, just go over them again. So we'll start with David. So I walked the Camino with a group of friends. We did it with our thoughts in mind. We felt calm and we found peace. Also, we also had a unique experience and enjoyed hundreds of artistic treasures. So, nos sentidos tranquilos. So I'm just going to put D for David. So David felt calm. Rea. So, for me, walking the Camino meant exploring the geography of northern Spain, walking through landscapes full of contrasts. It was a challenge. So, saw it as a challenge. So, Rea saw it as a challenge. It was a challenge that would teach me how to achieve my goal, although there were many difficulties. What I never imagined was that this adventure would end in a wedding. So, would end in a wedding, and that I would end up living thousands of miles away from my home country. So, ending in a wedding must mean that she found love on the journey. So, Rhea found love. So, Miriam, since I was a child, I wanted to walk the Camino, and I knew that physical preparation was essential. To prepare, I took long walks around my town, wearing the same shoes I would wear on the Camino, to see if they'd be suitable. So, Miriam is an odd one out here because she doesn't answer preferred being alone. So if Alejandro doesn't, then we need to go back. So I approach it as if it was a solo adventure. Although if I had wanted, I could have been accompanied by others the entire walk. They advised me to go in October because the hostels wouldn't be as full. In the summer, the situation is very different. So we can infer that he's being preferred to be alone because he doesn't want to go when it's the busy period. Hence, Alejandro, so A, prefers to be alone. If we check the mark scheme, so Rea, correcto, Alejandro, correcto, David, correcto, y Rea, correcto. 4 de 4. Pregunta 6. There is a second part to this question that you need to know. So, these are two on the next page of the exam paper. So, it asks you, apart from what long walks, what do you have to do to prepare for El Camino? So if we go back to Miriam, she says that about her trainers, and that's the answer. So she took long walks wearing the same shoes she would wear on the Camino. So what do you have to do to prepare? So wear suitable shoes, practice using shoes, anything to do with wearing your suitable shoes or something. And why should you do Camino in October? So you have to be very specific here. So it's to do with the hostels. So the hostels are quieter in October. And that should be your answer if you check the mark scheme. So to have suitable walking shoes. And the hostels are not so full. So yeah, the hospitals are quieter in October. Vale, pregunta 6, Rogelio Santo. So we have another 3 tick box questions. So we've had come across these before. You just tick a box which is in the text, and then we've also got 2 longer questions. So what is the long-term advantage of passing the exam, the opposition exam? And what does Rogelio say about his career choice? So the best way to answer this question is read the text, cross off any that you do not think are correct, and then at the end, then when you go through them, answer the questions at the same time. Alright, let's start reading. So, Rogelio, a biology teacher, talks about his profession, so that links to that one there. Okay, so I had the example of my family where there are many teachers, although at first I never thought about this career. So there. So he always wanted to follow, so no, because he did not think about his family at first. So that's incorrect. So he always enjoyed his work in Daytona. Let's read on. So after finishing biology, I did an internships at the camps in Daytona, so that's there. And when he was at Daytona, so since I enjoyed this experience and was very good at teaching nature classes to young people, I decided that teaching would be a good option for me. So he enjoyed his work in Daytona, so yeah, that's correct. So we can, in the exam, you will do a cross there, but I've started doing crosses there. And there we go, we can continue with the text. So decided that teaching could be a good option for me. The first thing I had to do was pass an exam. So this exam is the traditional selection method for accessing teaching positions in public schools. But the most important thing is that it guarantees you a lifetime position and therefore is associated with stability. So that's all here. That's where it says that. So that also answers this question here. So what is an advantage is that it guarantees a lifetime position. So where does it say that? Guarantees a lifetime position. So that goes there. And also, to teach interstate schools also says that you do have to pass the exam. So, if we go on to the last paragraph here. So, it allows you, so for some, being a teacher can be difficult, but it has great advantages. It allows you to open doors to a new world, as students are always eager to learn more and are interested in everything you can offer them. So let's go back to here for a second. So he thinks traditional teaching works well. He says his job is difficult. He says young people are inquisitive, and he thinks that students have too much power. So furthermore, there are many positive aspects to high school, such as the school council, an organisation where teachers, parents and students are represented. They help with the school's management and participate in the selection of the principal. The truth is, I've never regretted choosing this profession. So first of all, that last line, I have never regretted choosing this profession. So that's what he says about that. So that should get you the mark there. And then also going back to our thing here. So he says his job is difficult. Nope. He doesn't say that traditional methods don't work well. He does say young people are inquisitive. So that is your answer. He says there in that paragraph, he says that young people are inquisitive and hard to work. And he does not think that students have too much power. He in fact thinks that it's a good thing that the power they have to do with school council, where they vote for the principal. And that, theoretically, should get you 5 out of 5. Check the mark scheme then. So BCF, so we got them. So that's that mark. So that's 3 marks for 1 mark for each of them. So that's 3 there. So it guarantees a job for life. Get that one there. You could also say it provides stability. And question 6, he doesn't regret choosing his profession. It's the easiest one on the last line. And that'll get you 5 out of 5. Pregunta 7. Vale. Pregunta 7. Viajar en Avion. At this point, you will have completed section A, which is the part in English. So 7, 8, 9 are all in Spanish, and they will be for the rest of the paper. And section C is 7 marks at the end for a translation. So now you are in Spanish. The rest of your answers should be in Spanish. So, pregunta 7, viajar en avión. So we've got another tick box here. So, we think that flying is, before the trip, it's a good idea. During the trip, something everybody can do is, it is advised to and it is recommended to. So obviously the difference between the one earlier is that all your answers here are in Spanish. So let's just start reading the text. There's not a very big text for this one. So I start from the top. This will be in order again. So flying is the mode of transport with the fewest accidents. So seguro. Seguro is safe. It's not saying it's quick, it's not saying it's dangerous, it's not saying it's fun. So transporte con menos accidentes. So instant seguro. Antes del viaje is a buena idea. Vale. But it can also be the least fun, so that just knocks out fun there. Therefore, before flying, so we're here, it is a good idea to read articles on how to enjoy a flight. So it's bueno to read articles before you go on a flight. So before the thing, it's A. Not everyone can fall asleep or relax during the flight, but they can certainly talk to their neighbour, listen to music, or read a book or magazine. So antes del viaje, it's a good idea to be prepared. So they're not saying buy a book, they are saying just read one. So be prepared, like relax a bit. They're not saying speak with people, they're not saying sleep well, they're just saying to be prepared. So during the trip, what everyone can do is chat, it says, because many people, so it says not everyone can fall asleep during flights, so, but they can certainly talk to their neighbour, listen to music, read a book or magazine. So talk to neighbour, so charlar is the only one there possible. So se aconseja, so it is advised. So if we keep reading on, so many people also suggest sitting in the centre. So sentarse en el medio is sit in the middle. So that's the one. So mira por la venta is we'll look out the window. Reserva un asiento cómodo, reserve a comfortable seat. And sentarse cerca de la ventana, sit close to the window. So sit 6 into 10 to seat, so they don't constantly look out the window. So it's saying not about looking out the window, so them two are out. It says nothing to do with booking a chair. Se recomendaría, so se recomienda, so it is recommended. So also choose comfortable clothing and get up more than once to move your legs. So to get up more than once, well, D, it'd be the closest one because that's to walk. So D is your answer there, as D is the answer. So that's to get up and walk. So that should be your answer there if you check the mark scheme. So B, correct, A, C, B, and D. 5 out of 5. Vale, pregunta ocho. So we have another one of the questions where you've got 4 names. So if you ever don't know, guess. So you have es muy complicado, so very complicated. Play alone, it's cheap. Play with other people, and you need to have gaming experience for these games. And unlike other questions, that if we read this here, it's all about adverts in a Spanish market about games. So if we go through one by one, if we see any of these, we write it down. And there are 5 things with 4 names, so one of them will come up at least twice. Vale, Viner. So you'll practice winter sports in snowy mountains, making lots of jumps. I'm going to switch my pen. With our adventure games, you don't need to spend a lot of money to have fun. So, Viner, so es barato, it is cheap. So we're going to put a V there to know that it's Viner. Solar, so, go back to my pen. Solar, it will allow several players to solve problems by visiting large areas with valleys and towns. Compared to other games, this is the fastest. So does Solar answer any of them? So, yep, because you can play together with your friends, it says. So it will allow several players. So los juegas con otras personas es for Solar. Vale. Corali. So Karali says, go back to the laser, you can practice your skills by descending mountains at different altitudes. You don't need anyone to play this game, and you can control the speed at which you go at. So you don't need anyone to play it with, so that means that you can play alone. And there's nothing else here, so theoretically mod should be the last one, but let's just double check. So this game allows you to experience extreme situations. Only if you play video games often, this one is for you, as the difficulty level is high and you need quick reactions. So yeah, only if you play often, which means it's complicated, so that, and you need a lot of experience, he does say that. So if we check the mark scheme, Mont, Karali, Vinir, Solar, and Mont again, and you will get 5 out of 5. Pregunta noche. Vale, pregunta noche, las energías renovables. Okay, so this is the hardest question you'll come across on the Edexcel paper. It has 5 questions which you need to answer in Spanish for, and this is often a very tricky text with high-level language, and again, you have to understand and give a response from the questions. So on this slide, I'm going to give you the translation and the questions, and then the next slide we'll go through how you can answer and get 5 out of 5. So the questions are, so question A, ¿Cómo ha habitado el paisaje en España? Is how has the landscape changed in Spain? ¿Qué se dice sobre la flexibilidad de la energía del viento? Da dos ideas. That is, what is being said about the flexibility of wind energy? Give 2 ideas. ¿Por qué está teniendo más éxito la energía eólica? So why is wind energy becoming more successful? And ¿cómo sabemos que la energía del viento se usará más en los próximos años? How do we know that wind power is going to be used more in the coming years? And in terms of the passage on the left, I'm not going to read all of that out in Spanish, but I will show you the translation. So for the occasional traveller in Spain, wind turbines may be a big surprise, but they are now a normal part of the landscape for people who travel regularly. This is because wind energy brings us in many benefits. Wind is a clean, natural resource that doesn't pollute or leave waste. It also allows us to meet different needs as it can produce electricity in large quantities, such as in wind farms, which powers a city of thousands of people. But at the same time, we also have individual wind turbines that power just one home. Prices must also be considered. The cost of manufacturing and maintaining wind turbines has been gradually decreasing, making this type of energy one of the most successful. The problem is that wind energy cannot be easily stored, making it difficult to adapt electricity supply to demand. However, speaking of the future, the director of the Spanish electricity grid said we already have new systems for storing renewable energy. If you need any of that, take notes, as I will show you the answers and how to answer this on the next slide. So I hope you managed to get the translation. It is in the top left corner, very, very small, but if you can see that, well done. So I'm just going to run through the questions and what the mark scheme says and what you needed. So for part A, so que cada vez hay más aerogenerados, it says. So that means basically that there are more and more wind turbines. So that answers the question. So how has the landscape changed? There are more wind turbines, windmills, they're a part of the landscape. Question B, so it can produce energy in large quantities for a city, for many people, or wind farms. That'd get you 1 mark. Remember that it says dos ideas, which means 2 points. You need 2 points. So it can produce energy for a family, a house, wind turbines. So that's the flexibility of wind energy. It's producing energy for a family, and it can produce energy in large quantities. I feel like that's the nicest question out of the 4. Question C, so that's from the bottom left. So, el precio ha bajado o es más barato, so it's cheaper. So, why isn't wind energy becoming more successful? I mean, if you knew the question, to be honest, you possibly could have got that through common sense by just saying it's cheaper over time. But if you haven't, there you go. And then, how do we know that wind power will be used more in the coming years? So you can have 2 answers here. So there are already systems to store renewable energy, or Spain or the Spanish electricity grid has systems to store renewable energy. If you managed to get that one, I think that was really hard. So well done if you even got 2 out of 5 there. You didn't even need to score any marks to get a 9, but if you are scoring marks here, it saves you a bit because that means you basically have to have a perfect paper excluding this question. Okay, last part is section C, the translation, which is pregunta 10, lo siento. Y finalmente la última pregunta, pregunta 10. and this question is always the translation. For higher tier, you'll always get a paragraph, and normally it's alright. You'll always get a few words though that are designed and are chosen to try and throw you off, so not everyone gets 7 out of 7. So this question is worth 7 marks, and it's just try and write as much as you can. If you don't know what something means, guess. Don't leave anything blank, because if you leave it blank, you instantly lose marks. If you have a guess, you might have a go. So, start off with the first sentence. So do it sentence by sentence. So, something here is the responsibility of everyone. So, if you read the rest of it, you can see that it's a problem. Sorry, let's turn to the laser. So that there's a problem. Schools close their eyes to this. Something about rules. So we can assume, if we didn't know here, that it could be some sort of behavioural issue. And what is a common behavioural issue in school? Bullying. So the first sentence is, it is everyone's responsibility to stop bullying. So it is everyone's responsibility is from there. And then to stop bullying is like that. That's there. It's there. To stop bullying. The next sentence is, so change colour so that you guys can see. So, los institutos no deben cerrar los ojos a este problema. So, schools, they should not, cerrar is the verb to close. Los ojos is eyes to this problem. So, schools should not close their eyes to this problem. You could also have said schools should not turn a blind eye to this problem, and you would also get the mark. That's quite a nice sentence. So, las reglas, so the rules, need to be strict, and students should know the consequences of not following them. And that's the next one. So, of not following them is there. De no seguirlas. So, understand, they should understand. Deben saber. And then the last sentence, which is probably the tricky one here. So, los psicólogos, so psychologic, I can't say the word, psychologists, they recommend that in classes there should be a box. So a caja is a box. That's probably a word you probably didn't know. On a caja for that students can put in their secret complaints and basically tell teachers. Whatever you put there is probably correct. So that's that. So psychologists recommend that in the classroom there should be a box so that students can put their secret complaints. The exam board recommend you spend about 15 minutes on this. I think that over the years they have got harder. I feel like this is actually, when you look at it, it's a nicer translation than other years. But it doesn't mean it's not tricky for some. Just try and write anything for this. If you don't know a word, look at the text. If you didn't know what the start was pretty hard for this. If you didn't know what para a los cursos escolares, then read the rest of the text and just take a guess. So it's everyone's responsibility to follow rules. You know, you wouldn't get marks for it, but it's better than putting it's everyone's responsibility. School should not close their eye, because if not, you can't be rewarded at all for any of that, and then you don't get marks, which isn't good. That's it for this video on GCSE Edexcel 2018 Spanish Reading Higher Tier paper. This, if you got this paper and you've listened to me, you will have got 50 marks out of 50 marks. I've been speaking for about 34 minutes, which is quite good. You get 60 minutes in the exam hall for this. Take your time. There is no rush. You get plenty of time. The exam board, like I said, recommend 45 minutes for the start and 15 for the end. If you found this video useful in any way, please subscribe, turn on notifications, like the video, comment. If you have any questions in the comments, put them in the comments. If I've made mistakes, which I probably have, please put them in the comments, and please tune for more videos as I will be doing more paper walkthroughs. Foundation tier, you will also get one soon, and AQA, if I have time, I'll do them. But I'm focusing on Edexcel as no one does Edexcel online. Again, Edexcel Spanish higher tier. If you found this useful, subscribe. Thank you for listening to me today, and thank you for watching Español. Adios, chicos.